Ever wonder what a narcissist does when they realize you're too strong to control? It's not just silence or rage. Your power exposes everything they've been hiding, and suddenly their real playbook comes out. After coaching hundreds of women through these exact dynamics for over a decade, I can tell you there are very predictable moves they make once they know they've lost control. So I'm going to show you what to expect next, how to stay empowered, and the smartest ways to protect yourself from getting pulled back in. What can you expect when the narcissist realizes that you're too strong to control? That you aren't going to be easily manipulated or dominated? When it becomes clear that you actually have a backbone, some dignity, integrity, and self-respect. You have standards and boundaries. What happens when it's clear that you have the capacity for wise discernment and are therefore onto them? You are your own person, you know your own mind, and you aren't open to, nor are you available for, manipulative control and power dynamics in any relationship. What happens when it becomes clear that the narcissist's tactics have zero sway over you? Try as they may, you are immovable. What will the narcissist do? How do they handle that? Well, not very well. There are a few very predictable things that narcissists will do when they realize you are too strong for the game they're running and aren't easily wooed or swayed into believing their BS. Now, what's interesting is, initially, the narcissist will likely be attracted to your strength, your confidence, your courage, and your personal power. But inevitably, they'll be triggered by it, and you'll be perceived as a threat. Something you do or say, usually something completely innocuous, will be enough to inflict narcissistic injury, trigger their pathological envy, and maybe even ignite their rage. Now, whether or not they let on, that's an entirely different story. Regardless, suddenly, there's a target on your back, and often for no other reason than you just showed up being your fabulous self, unwilling to bow down to the narcissist and buy into their distorted perception of reality. Seriously, sometimes that's all it can take. The more empowered you are, the happier you are, the more confident, clear, and free you are, the more you will trigger the deep-seated feelings of inadequacy and insecurity in the narcissist. And as a result, the more you'll be perceived as a threat to their fragile ego and false persona. Furthermore, when it becomes clear that you aren't so easy to control, manipulate, or dominate, your strength and personal power will become a problem, a big problem for the narcissist, which of course will frustrate them to no end. But more importantly, in their mind, it will absolutely justify any retaliatory behavior on their part. So, know in advance that a narcissist will become infuriated when their usual manipulation tactics don't yield the desired result. As such, they'll weaponize your empathy, use guilt trips, and become more demanding in an attempt to assert dominion and control over you. People who land on the spectrum of destructive narcissism have to exert authority over others. They need to be in a position of dominance and control. They also need to create and maintain a perception of superiority, no matter how false that perception may be. In reality, their fundamental way of showing up in the world relies on pure manipulation and the projection of a false image. And as far as they're concerned, all is well, as long as they're getting their way and getting their needs met. But the moment that's not the case, there will be trouble. Once they're not getting their way, once it becomes clear that they are not in control, once you're not complying, or God forbid, you accidentally show them up somehow, like, for example, by simply being who you are naturally and authentically, well, what happens is, whether you realize it or not, their ego takes a hit, and sometimes a big hit. Remember, this is their stuff, not yours. At a time like this, it's important to remember the 3 C's. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you certainly can't cure it. If they can't gaslight you into some form of submission, compliance, or feelings of inferiority, if they can't succeed in controlling, manipulating, or dominating you, if you aren't completely enamored with their false persona, phony kindness, and manipulative charm, then, given the limited tools they have to work with in their emotional and psychological toolbox, in their mind, they'll be left with no alternative than to target you. And narcissists, being the sneaky little cowards that they are, they're most likely to do this behind your back as they work to manipulate and control how other people see you. When a narcissist can't control you, again, they feel threatened by you. And when they feel threatened by you, they'll have to deal with that threat in the only way they know how. And usually that'll mean working to control how others perceive you, how others feel about you. They'll literally go out of their way to sabotage your reputation and relationships with others, saying whatever it takes to make you look and sound as bad as possible. And the reality is, this can be going on long before you ever even realize there's a problem. Why? Well, like I said, narcissistic people are phony, and they are liars. They lie outright, and they lie by omission. And they do so with tremendous ease and zero remorse. So they have no problem showing up and pretending that all is well. Like, for example, enjoying your hospitality and eating the food at your dining room table, while simultaneously smearing you to smithereens the moment your back is turned. Nice people. Now, the bottom line is, narcissists need to be in a position of perceived authority, superiority, dominance, and control. And although attractive and compelling in the early stages of the relationship, your strength and personal power is going to be very problematic for anyone who lands on the spectrum of destructive narcissism. It's just a question of time. You'll be seen as too difficult or too hard to get along with, which is the same thing as saying too strong to control, manipulate, dupe, deceive, or dominate. And the reality is, people who are seen as being too strong by the narcissist are indeed individuals who are confident, boundaried, self-reliant, and clear. People who are emotionally intelligent and personally developed enough to be living sovereign lives, independent of the opinion of others, not least of which the twisted opinions of the narcissist. The narcissist opinion of them, or anything else for that matter, doesn't even register on the radar of a fully empowered person. Fully empowered people think for themselves, act for themselves, feel for themselves, discern for themselves, fully trust themselves, and therefore rely on their own good judgment and ability to accurately assess a person, environment, or situation. In addition, they tend to be grounded in their own good opinion of themselves, as opposed to going through life seeking approval and validation from the world around them. And needless to say, this level of personal empowerment is not only problematic, but highly triggering for people with a destructive narcissist personality pattern. Now, comment below and let me know whether or not you've experienced any of this. Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you're struggling with narcissistic abuse in any area of your life, you're likely an excellent candidate for my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class. If that's of interest to you, there's a link in the description below this video where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free one-on-one consultation with either myself or a member of my team. Now, with all of that said, once the narcissist is triggered by your strength, your confidence, your courage, and personal power, in addition to discrediting and smearing you to others, the narcissist will also jump at every opportunity to knock you down a peg or two. They'll happily point out any mistakes, flaws, or perceived shortcomings, lest you think too highly of yourself, or again, God forbid, anyone else sees you in a favorable light. They don't like that. They'll also hold your history and any past mistakes you've made over your head with a bizarre sense of glee. This is just one more tactic the narcissist will use to undermine your sense of self-worth. They'll take great delight in holding your past against you. No matter how many legitimate challenges and obstacles you've had to work hard to overcome or work through. No matter how much work you've had to do. No matter how hard you've worked to heal and grow. No matter how far you've come. No matter how much you may have changed over the years or the decades even. Anything they can latch onto and run with can and will be used against you. They're that mean. They'll also take great pleasure in honing in on any vulnerabilities with deliberate intent to cause you to doubt yourself and your worth. In other words, they will deliberately manufacture and then amplify any feelings of guilt, shame, fear, inadequacy, and insecurity within you for no other reason than to keep you in line and feeling less than. When in reality, it's their own deeply buried, disowned feelings of inferiority that drives all of this craziness. And unless you've been on the receiving end of this kind of emotional and psychological abuse, it can be difficult to believe that people can be this kind of cruel for no other reason than their own fear, shame, and insecurities have been triggered. But as many of you know, it happens every day, all day long, in narcissistic families, marriages, and other toxic relationship dynamics. So, now that you know what to expect, let me show you what to do about it. To begin with, it's important to understand that your response to these tactics plays a crucial role in the outcome. While it can be difficult knowing how to set healthy limits and boundaries, it is essential. It's not about being tough just for the sake of it. It's about protecting your well-being while building your self-esteem and preserving your self-worth. That's your job. No one else is going to do that for you. When it comes to setting boundaries, you want to clearly define what you will and will not tolerate. Communicate these boundaries to the narcissist, but then be prepared for them to test these boundaries repeatedly, and it's going to be up to you to stand your ground. If you want to learn more about how to set healthy limits and boundaries with confidence, you can check out my program, Boundary Brilliance, by clicking on the link in the description below this video. Now, that leads us to the next vitally important step to protect yourself so you don't get pulled back in. You want to strengthen your support network. Reach out to safe, healthy friends and family, a qualified therapist, a coach, or counselor for help. You don't have to navigate this alone and without support. And if narcissistic abuse is a repeating pattern in your life, not only do you not have to navigate it alone, but you really want to make a commitment to doing your personal healing and recovery work so you can heal for real and break free from the subconscious programming that's driving this attraction pattern in your life. Having a strong support system in place can provide you with the emotional and psychological support you need to withstand the narcissist tactics in a healthy, emotionally intelligent, and boundaried way, while also giving you the support you need to make real progress on your own healing and recovery journey. The bottom line is, it's important to recognize that you have the ability to overcome narcissistic abuse and heal from its effects. But that doesn't happen by accident. You actually have to do the work. Now, here's the thing. Your strength, empathy, and resilience are powerful assets that narcissistic people will attempt to diminish, weaponize, and use against you if they can get away with it. So stay true to yourself. Learn to set healthy limits and boundaries, seek support, and focus on your personal healing and recovery journey. You deserve a life that's filled with love and kindness, peace and compassion and respect. A life that's filled with joy, purpose, and abundance. It's time now. Now that you know what to expect when a narcissist knows you're too strong to control, watch this video next to learn what your silence does to the narcissist.